morning. Our message for today is entitled Rising Higher. You see, all of us here in this world wants to be the best. And it's very normal for every one of us to aim high goals and desire not to be left behind. One writer has said this, that in leadership, the way up is to go down. Serve before you got served. One leader in the time of the Old Testament, no other than King David, have said this passage in his inspired writing in the book of Psalms 119, verse 125. I am thy servant, give me understanding that I may know thy testimonies. You see, despite of being a king, a ruler, or a leader, he chose to call himself a servant of someone whom he is to serve. And so what is the lesson that we can get in that text? Here we could see that men are to humble themselves before God, however high their position. See, we can be one of the greatest, well-known here in this known world. And education can lead us to attain a position. Wealth can make you be a boss. Physical power can make you in control of being a ruler. Yet despite of that, without God, anything is nothing. Because pride is weakness and is folly in God's sight. Mrs. White had said in the book of Science of the Times, October 21, 1897, in self-love, self-exaltation, and pride, there is a great weakness, but in humility, there is a great strength. It was our Savior's gentleness, his plain and assuming manners that made him a conquest of hearts. See, Jesus himself, our greatest model, that showed us what it is to live the life of not being proud. So what is the promise that we can claim in this passage? As David again have said that God is able to give understanding also for us. God gives understanding and that he is the source of wisdom. Even the wisest king in the time of the Old Testament, named King Solomon, have said this, that the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. To fear the Lord in subjection and love and reverence to God, it is when the time that we would acknowledge indeed it will be the beginning of wisdom. Why? Mrs. White said in the book of In Heavenly Places, what higher and power can man require than this? To be linked with an infinite God, feeble, sinful, the privilege of speaking to his maker. We may utter words that reach the throne of the monarch of the universe. And so that is the privilege that we can have as a promise that we can claim when we choose to serve God. And so what is the blessing that we can enjoy when man choose to serve God? Psalms 119 verse 125. As David himself have decided and choose to serve God, so is Apostle Paul in his time. But not being free from sin and become servants to God, you have your fruit unto holiness and the end, everlasting life. It is through serving God that man choose eternal preservation. It is the gift of eternity that God wants us to have. Steps to Christ, page 80, paragraph 2. Those who devote themselves to unselfish effort for the good of others are most surely working out their salvation. Unless we move in choosing to serve God and our fellow men, we can never find the life that God wants to have. Jesus himself have lived us an example of this in the book of Mark chapter 10 verse 45. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister and to give his life a ransom for many. You see, Jesus himself, the King of Kings, the commander of the heavenly hosts, showed his sympathy for us to serve his people who are perishing. And so if it is your decision right now to serve God and to choose eternal preservation and to follow the example of Jesus Christ, you can show this by raising your right hand. May God bless our hearts.